Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another review. And today we're back with another comedy review. Where should we start, you ask? Well, none other than the British Office. Now, this series, I've got to say, was a very interesting one because honestly, it's the first time I've watched a comedy and I kind of felt like I was being dragged along. It really took me a while when watching The Office to kind of get the grasp of it and see where they were going with it. Now, each and every one of the cast in this series, I've got to give an absolute up. They're trying their best, and we're really, really going along with them as their story arcs begin to evolve. Let's start introducing you to a few of the characters then. You've got Garet. Now, Garet is an ex soldier who has, for whatever reason, decided to work in the office. Then we have David Brent. David Brent is an outgoing guy, but he's also a little bit too forward for a boss. He's always saying in this series that his attempt is to make people smile, but often I think the problem in this series is he doesn't quite pay much attention to himself. Well, not of course until in the later series when he starts to truly realise the effect he's had on his staff and on his own life. This idea that he's always trying to impress everyone, but no one was reciprocating the fun back. Well, they're doing the special, but that's after a series of good, light-hearted jokes. Tim and Dawn are love interests for this whole series. They're very comical, and that's what's brilliant about them throughout this whole series. There's not one moment, honestly, I ever felt bored of these two. I absolutely love both actors' chemistry and the way that they kind of could go into a room or they could go into a situation heads on. Even occasionally when they're having their little documentary moments like everyone else, they were still very heads on with this idea of nothing can phase them. The world can chuck a brick wall in their way, they would just walk around it. And to watch the tragedy of Tim asking her out twice and that kind of rejection really starting to eat away at his character. He's still a very strong man, but he admits to his fault, and he also admits to the fact that no matter what happens, he would never not be able to think of Dawn. Now, Dawn eventually comes back for him after being given a secret Santa with watercolours and pencils and all sorts for her to essentially go back to her illustrating and drawings. Neil Godwin. Neil Godwin is a very hands on, strong boss. Neil is introduced in the second season after his company has to merge with David's due to some financial situation. Neil comes across in the whole series as a very outgoing and very loved boss by his staff, which is understandable when he knows when to be a boss and he knows when to kind of let loose. He never kind of feels like one of these bosses who are trying to be your best friend, but he's definitely a boss who knows that he can make your day just a little bit better. Now we get on to one of my favourite characters in The Office, Keith. The legend, the myth, the man who made this show an absolute sensation, at least for me. Um, he's blunt. There's just no way of putting it. He's a very blunt character, and he kind of has those moments in meetings with certain characters, whether it's Dawn, whether it's David, whether it's anyone. He kind of sits there and he just gives simple, straightforward answers. What do you want to put? Yes. Is there any other options? No. Is there anything? No. Yes. No. And he gets that across, but I feel like his characterization as well, those little moments we get with him sometimes where he just starts to unravel to people about what he is really like, even outside of the office, is brilliant. Now we come to two of my most least liked characters in The Office, Donna and Rachel. Rachel is introduced as an alternate love interest to Tim, and Donna is introduced as the daughter of a friend of David's who gets an opportunity to work in the office. Rachel definitely has her moments, but Donna to me just kind of felt like she didn't need to be there. Maybe that's me seeing it completely wrong, but I just feel like the actress who plays Donna is brilliant. I've seen her in Not Going Out, I've seen her in many other things, um, but I just kind of feel like this was not the role for her. Chris Finch and Jennifer. Chris Finch, in a nutshell, is a bit of an arse. He's one of those people who pretends to be your mate and then he's pretty much slagging you off in front of your face, pretending it's a laugh, pretending it's banter, but in reality, he doesn't care and he's only really doing it for his own glorification. Jennifer. Jennifer, on the other hand, is a very likable character because she's a strong businesswoman for a start. She's very authoritative, and she doesn't take no crap off of David when he starts going on about the fact of him not doing tasks. She's very on the ball. She's pretty much saying to him, "Do your job, or you're out of here, mate." And eventually, sadly for David, he becomes redundant in this series on the basis that he pretty much thinks that he can do whatever he wants in the office, so they replace him with Garet. Jamie and Lee. Jamie is a very likable character. He's kind of your geezer, who you might remember from like just being in work and stuff in general, and he's down to earth. He's very open minded and he's a ball of a laugh. Lee. Lee is intentionally hate um like just a character you really should despise in this series. You like Lee in the beginning, don't get me wrong. You definitely look at Lee and think, "Ooh, you know, he's got some coconuts on him." But after a while, you kind of start to think to yourself, "What's this guy's true intentions?" Lee goes out with Dawn, which kind of stops Tim and Dawn getting together. But as soon as Lee has Dawn in his hand, he pretty much goes off the rails. Every second of every minute, he absolutely loses it with anyone that tries to get in his way, which I can understand to certain extents, but at the same time, he plays this whole pally shtick with Tim, and then he kind of backtracks and starts fighting with him over Dawn. Um, he also starts to become a little bit more of a prick, especially once you get to the special, when you find out that he's more likely the reason why Dawn originally gave up the idea of pursuing her dream as an artist. Um, she kind of tries to infer that she didn't want to do it, but it's evident from her facial expressions and the way she acts that she really, really didn't have much of a choice. Quick honourable mention, Olivia Colman got a cameo in The Office. Very brief, very impactful. She definitely has her moment to shine, um, so to speak, when she plays this person who's supposed to be writing a article on David Brent. So, time to get to the score on The Office, the comedy. It has its ups, it has its downs. I definitely say its biggest down has got to be its intro. It's very slow. I get it. This is supposed to be an office environment, but I just kind of feel like it was nagging on borderline boredom for me personally on at least the first episode of The Office. I feel like once I got into the season and started to really immerse myself in the lives of these characters, I really started to see the truth behind the curtain. Ricky Jeevers definitely gets a few good times to shine. He turns up as Austin Powers to a dating show. He dances randomly as soon as people ask about his dance moves. The guy can goddamn play the guitar like an absolute legend. He finally meets a girl who will actually put up with him. And he definitely stands up to Finchy. He plays the first series off as if Finchy's his mate, but he finally, in the end, sees the truth behind the curtain and realizes Finchy was never out to be his mate. He was more out to let him fall, let him lose his job, lose everything. Tim and Dawn, as I've said before, absolutely brilliant. The moments I loved about them the most is when they go into the office and they just wind up Garet. They start making gay jokes at Garet because he was a soldier. Not specifically because he's a soldier, but they start asking him about if he had to do. If he captured people or he was sleeping in bunks, they make very implicit jokes about what they might get up to. And so, as I said, like story wise, once we got past the barrier of the first episode, I definitely feel like this whole series picked up. And for that reason, I give The Office a solid 6 out of 10. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next comedy review. Until then, stay beautiful, stay amazing, and stay vigilant. You are gorgeous people. Gorgeous, beautiful people.